Hello, welcome back, or if this is your first time here, welcome. I thought it would be very fun to do like a comparison of like the North American Nintendo consoles and games compared to Japan, because I mean nowadays everything's pretty standard. Like Switch cartridge, carts are they're pretty similar. Um, the only like regional differences really would be like special edition like consoles or games, but back then it was a lot different. So so for example, this is probably the Nintendo a lot of you guys remember. The it looks like a VCR. It is front loaded, has two controller ports, AV ports, RF, which is there, and all that stuff. And you're probably used to the controller, which matches the console perfectly. D-pad, start, select. Pretty, pretty long cord, has the Nintendo logo. But that's not what Japan got. So the Nintendo came out a couple years before in Japan, and it is known as the Famicom. And it looks quite different. And if you do a size comparison, it is significantly smaller. And the design, it looks more like a toy, But I mean, like the history, like Nintendo did this on purpose because of like the video game crash. They didn't want it to be like a video game console. They wanted it to be like something that you could, it's an entertainment system. Well, this is just the family computer, also known as the Famicom. So right off the bat, you can tell it is a top-loading console, which means it's more reliable than this. That's why they did that revision with the Nintendo, the top loader, and that's why that one's so expensive. It's more reliable, and you can play any game on that. Unfortunately, I do not have that because it is insanely expensive. But yeah, and this is how you eject the games. So it's kind of like the Super Nintendo, and it has a little dust cover. This is the on-off switch and the reset. And it comes with two controllers. The cords aren't very long, and unfortunately they're hardwired into the console, which is kind of good and bad. You don't have to lose your controllers, but at the same time, it's if one breaks, I guess you'd have to send it into Nintendo. But yeah, and there's like little trays right here that you can just slide the controller right in there. It looks really nice. Let's do another kind of comparison. Let's get it in frame. I know I'm so bad at this. Unfortunately, and it's pretty rubbed off. This is where the AC adapter would be. I believe these are like all different settings for like changing channels and stuff. But the disadvantage of the Famicom compared to the NES or the Nintendo is it only does RF. So the picture quality is not great. And on the bottom, there's some slots. This is where the Famicom disk system would go, and you'd have like the RAM adapter that would go in here, so you'd be able to play games like on floppy disks essentially. We never got that here. I believe on the bottom there is a removable piece of plastic on the Nintendo NES that it looks like something was supposed to be there, but they never really capitalized on that for whatever reason. Now, when we compare the controllers, they're pretty similar, but they're quite different as well. You see, what we got here has more like square edges, right? So I know some people complain about it like digging into their palms, like when, you're playing like a game. I've never had that issue, but I can definitely see it being an issue. I do prefer this controller. It's more rounded. The buttons feel not as clicky. But I think it's a very, very comfortable controller. Now, this controller is a little more unique. You see, it has a volume slider and a microphone. No start and select like the other ones. Only a few games actually utilize this, and one of those games is The Legend of Zelda on the Famicom disk system, which they did end up re-releasing on cartridge. It's a really cool green cartridge. I don't have it yet. But for example, in that game, there's an enemy called Pole's Voice, and for years it just confused people from around the globe, because the description in the manual says Pole's Voice does not like loud noises. So everyone thought, oh, it's bombs. What you would do is you would make noise into this microphone. You'd like yell or like scream, and it'd kill them, or defeat them, however you want to say it. That is really cool, because the Famicom, I believe, came out in 1983. So this was kind of ahead of its time, because when you think about that, you think of like the DS and stuff like that, right? That had like a built-in microphone. This is pretty incredible for 1983. And the NES didn't get here until 85. I kind of wish they would have done the cool microphone in the controller, but I don't know why they didn't do that. But that's not all the only differences. So even the cartridges are different. So less pin connectors, a lot smaller. So this is the Famicom version of Super Mario Bros., the original. I love the art. So if you zoom in, you can see like the Koopa Troopas, the Lakitus, the Paratroopas, the Goombas, the really weird looking Toads. Bowser looks completely different, and Peach looks different too, but Mario, he seems like he's been kind of the same. You see the bullet bill up there. It's yellow. It's pretty, it feels pretty cheap compared to NES games, but I think it's pretty cool. So then when you come in here, come here with this cartridge, the art's different. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. He's about to die. He's jumping into a brick wall, shooting a fireball for whatever reason. This is iconic, though. I do think like the black box NES games are very iconic, but it's part of the action series, and it actually has the seal of approval, the seal of quality. This doesn't, so maybe it's not that great. No, I'm just kidding. And it's yeah, this is the one that everyone else got, but it's so cool to like see the differences. And I also have Super Mario Bros. 3, which I think both art is very iconic. This one feels a little more beefy. So if we zoom in, you see more of like the art of like Mario. It's becoming more like streamlined. Like there's Luigi, you can tell. There's Bowser. He still looks a little goofy. He has a cape, which is kind of sick. And you have like, the 7 sons of Bowser. And I really like the art. I kind of wish we got this here, but this is like, sometimes the simple stuff is really cool. Like, I don't know. I think it's sick. And this also happens to be the misprint. So this is like, I believe it's the original run, right? Where the Bros is actually supposed to be right under here, but they messed up, but they quickly remedied that. So this one is a little rarer. I picked it up for like $25, and I have the fixed version complete in box. But it's really cool to see like the regional differences. And unfortunately, because the NES and the Famicom are just vastly different consoles, these are, unfortunately, you can only play this on NES, you can only play this on Famicom. I'm sure there's some kind of adapter for the top loader, but the pins are completely different. As you can see, the NES has a lot more pins than the Famicom. And it's not just physical differences in these games as well. So in Super Mario Bros. 3, in North America and other territories, I believe, when you say you get Raccoon Mario, normally if you get hit once, you go down to Super Mario, and then you get hit again, and then you become regular Mario. Not in this game. You get 2 hits, you're done. So you could be Raccoon Mario, or you can be like Tanuki Mario. The moment you get hit, at least from my experience, you go down to regular Mario. So it is significantly more difficult. I mean, Mario Bros. 3 isn't particularly like a difficult game overall, but this is it's a fun challenge if you mastered this game and you want to kind of change it up, right? I think it's cool. So that's not the only regional differences. So here I have the Super Nintendo version of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Pretty standard, gold, really cool looking shield, sword, end label, all that. here is A Link to the Past for the Super Famicom, and just look at how gorgeous that is. Like, the Super Famicom logo is colored, and in English, Super Famicom in big letters, so you know this is like the next evolution of Zelda, right? This is like 16-bit. They're not messing around anymore. And you get a picture of the Master Sword. The first time you ever see the Master Sword in the series, and you see it in the forest. Like, it's just, oh, like, this is cool. Like I said with Super Mario Bros. 3, like, simple isn't always bad. So this is pretty iconic too, you know, like Zelda, at least in like in North America, is known for like gold, right? Which you see like with Ocarina of Time and like Wind Waker and all the, you know, all these other games. Like, gold is kind of Zelda's thing here. But even like the physical cartridges, like, look how different they are. Now, the only reason we can't play these here is, I believe, it's a physical thing with the Super Nintendo. So it's not a software thing. It's not like the Famicom, where it's like it's physically impossible. There's just little notches. Oh, I just realized that's chipped. That's not good. So that's the only real thing preventing you from playing it on a North American Super Nintendo. So what you'd have to do, and it's same with the Nintendo 64, which we will get to here in a moment, you can physically alter your console. So you can just start importing these. If you don't know Japanese, it might be a bit more difficult for you. But yeah, it's pretty much the same game, just in Japanese. And the games over there are so much cheaper because they don't really hold on to things like we do here. When they you know, like, they just kind of move on. You know, the Japanese culture, they're like, just throw this in like a book off or something, you know. They don't really, you know, collect kind of things like that. I'm sure like there are people out there that do, but so you can get these pretty cheap. I got mine complete in box for about like $60 American. But yeah, so I didn't actually want to physically take apart my console, so my arcade actually has an adapter, and you can even slip these in here, so you don't actually have to take it out of your console. But so this is how I started playing this, and I also have Japanese Mario Kart. So you just slide it in like this, slide it into your console, and then bam, you're playing Japanese A Link to the Past, which is really cool. Maybe that's too much money to spend on something like this. I think I spent like $8, but and sometimes it's like really snug, so you kind of have to be careful. But I recommend it if you don't really want to take apart your Nintendo and you want to keep like OEM parts. You don't want to really, you know, kind of toss things. But yeah, that's the regional differences for Super Famicom and Super Nintendo games. Now we're moving on to Nintendo 64. So these, I got these cartridges pre-owned from a local game store. They've seen better days. I don't know how I should try to get the paint off of that. I don't want to wreck the label. And this has been sun bleached. Yeah, there's not really much I can do with that. But aside from the labels and like the logos being different, like in North America, this is called Banjo-Tooie, and in Japan it's called Banjo-Kazooie 2, which is kind of like, yeah, I mean, Banjo-Tooie is more fun to say, but Banjo-Kazooie 2, it's just like straight to the point, like, yes, this is the sequel. I'm not sure which title I like more. I don't really think it matters, but at the same time, it's like interesting. But they're the same size. They're, you know, unlike the you know, Famicom and Super Famicom, where the cartridges are drastically different. These are pretty much the same. When you flip it to the back, they're pretty similar. There's some differences. Obviously, this one's in Japanese and this one's in English. And here, we call them game packs, which is interesting. And then in Japan, they call them cassettes. But I call them cartridges because that's kind of what they are. I don't know why Because when you say cassette, you think of, at least for me, you think of like VHS cassettes or like music cassettes, like for like Walkman and stuff like that. So that's interesting. They call it cassettes and game pack without the C, because, you know, in the 90s, it's so cool. You know, like you use Z's and you take letters away, and it's funny. But the biggest difference is right here. So this is the only reason you can't play Japanese games on a North American Nintendo 64. Right here. And that's all it is. So it's similar to the Super Nintendo and Super Famicom. It's just, these are different. See? So this is the North American game, and there's indents on the end. In the Japanese game, there's indents in the middle. So all you need to do is take apart your Nintendo 64. There's a piece of plastic with these like indents that kind of like, that go into it, if that makes sense. You just remove that, and then bam, you're playing both of these. And I don't know if there is something like a converter for Nintendo 64. I'm not sure, but sorry about that. I know on Etsy that people do, like, if you want to keep your OEM parts, and you, because I see so many videos on YouTube that's like, oh, take pliers, just get in there and just tear out like the plastic. Don't do that. You don't want to harm the console. There's better ways to go about freeing the region lock from your Nintendo 64. On Etsy, there are plenty of people that 3D print like the little plastic cartridge thing that you just need to replace. So then you can keep your original OEM one unscathed, and then you can just put in the 3D printed one, and then bam, start importing these games, because these are a lot cheaper too, even complete in box. I think like Ocarina of Time in the US, I think I paid almost $200 for it complete in box. I think in Japan it's like $40 to $60, at least at the time of this video. So yeah, that's like the main difference with these. Now, this one is kind of funny. I do not have like the matching game like I do with the other ones. So, GameCube. Look at this. All right, North American, Japanese. Unfortunately, this one is not complete, so it might look a little goofy. But I'll start with the North American version of GameCube games. So, pretty big box. Comes with this. So back then, as a security measure, they'd put like these plastic magnets in here that you would only be able to remove with a plastic or like a magnet key. And so you wouldn't be able to open it. It would slide right in here, so it would try to prevent theft. I don't know how well that worked. I was just a child when the GameCube was around. So as you can see, there's art. It's pretty standard. Still got the mini discs. Star Fox Adventures. I actually need to finish this game. Not too bad. And you have the manual, which is good sized. You know, pretty standard nowadays. Now this, I wish I did have complete. And the reason it's not complete is for Japanese GameCube games, and I don't know why they did this. It's kind of sick, but at the same time, if you're trying to maintain this, the good quality of these games, it's going to be a bit more difficult. So, you know, back then with like cartridge-based games, the entire box was cardboard, right? Really hard to kind of keep around, you know, whether it be Super Nintendo, NES, whatever. Cardboard boxes, you know, they combined it. So this actually came with a cardboard sleeve, kind of like if you get like a Blu-ray, right, or like a 4K movie, how they have that cardboard sleeve. They started doing that with they did that with GameCube games, and when you slide that off, this is what you get, which is kind of funny compared to this, where it's you have the full arts, you have all this on the back. But if you're missing the cardboard cover, which I wish I had, unfortunately I do not. I got this pre-owned at one of my local game stores, and I wish I had the North American Double Dash to compare it, because this cover is so cool in comparison, at least for me. But yeah, you'll see it's just pretty standard. Here's Double Dash. It looks pretty similar to the North American version. Pretty beat up. I think I paid like 20 bucks for this, so it's not really, you know. Club Nintendo code, if you want to go ahead and use it. Club Nintendo's not around anymore, unfortunately. So this is how you handle your discs. So just be careful with your GameCube discs. You don't want them damaged, especially nowadays. American or North American GameCube discs are insanely expensive. That's why my GameCube collection is very small at the moment. And then the manual has seen better days. So there's Lakitu. And Japanese manuals, they're so different compared to US. Oh, well, yeah, don't try fitting regular discs or something. It's gonna bend. Shows you the controls. Here's some really cool art. I miss GameCube and N64 era renders. I don't mind like the modern Mario renders, but there's just something about these. Like maybe it's because I was a kid at the time, but they're very iconic, nostalgic to me. But I was going through this a couple days ago. I've only had this game for about like a week. All the characters' names are in English. You got Mario, Luigi, you know, Diddy Kong, Donkey Kong, Daisy, Peach, Koopa Jr., which I still think is really cool. I mean, you know, in the 80s and 90s cartoons here, they were known as like King Koopa, which is really cool. Wario Waluigi, Pada Pada, Noko Noko, which from now on I will refer to them as Pata Pata and Noko Noko. Baby Luigi, Baby Mario, Yoshi, and you thought it was Birdo. No, it's Catherine. So it's not Birdo, it's not Egberto, which I have heard multiple times. It's Catherine. So from now on, it is Catherine, which I think is absolutely hilarious. And then, you know, just your kind of your standard art, battle mode, things like that. And it just slides in right here. I like the curve, because it's just kind of like the GameCube logo, right? Like it just kind of has that boom curve, and you just put it in like this. I don't want to damage it anymore. Just slide that in. And then you would just have the cardboard sleeve and then just put it on your shelf. It's so funny, the differences. But modern games, you know, Nintendo, it's not quite like this. I'm sure there's some instances, like I said, like the special edition, like game bundles, or like, you know, like there's specific, I cannot English today. There's specific like Nintendo Switch exclusive consoles. I think they got like a Dragon Quest Nintendo Switch and things like that, which they did that with PS4s and Vitas, and I'm like, that's insane. I'm jealous. But other than that, we don't really, it's pretty standard nowadays. And that's good for, you know, all the consumers, all the gamers, so they don't have to be like, oh, I have to go get a Famicom now, or oh, I have to try to jailbreak my GameCube, you know. And even though it's not like difficult, it's just like an inconvenience. Region locking, in my opinion, was kind of dumb in the first place. It shouldn't have been a thing, because people are going to find their way, whether they pirate the games or, you know, which I do not advocate piracy. Yeah, but I get it. So, you know, I understand why people do it, but it's just nice nowadays, you know, you don't have region lock with like PS5 and Switch and Xbox. So if there's like an exclusive like Mario game in Japan, which I'm sure there's a couple, I don't have to worry about, you know, oh, I have to go get a new Nintendo Switch or a Switch 2. Like, I just have to import the game. And a lot of the time, if there is like an English release of it, if I remember correctly, it'll just play it like that. I could be mistaken. At least that's what I learned from a couple videos I've been watching. If that's wrong, leave a comment. But yeah, like you just pop it in and it works. So yeah, I just thought this would be a fun video. And if you guys like videos like this, just comment and let me know, because I find this stuff really interesting, and I really like the history of video games, right? Like, and especially Nintendo, because they still have their quirks, but it feels like from like 1983 up until like even like the GameCube, they do like funny little quirky things, like whether it be software, hardware, just things like this, physical differences to consoles, you know. So if you like this kind of content, give it a like, comment, and if you enjoyed me stumbling over my words and doing my best to kind of explain this, you know, if you had a good time, consider subscribing. That would be really cool. No pressure. Yeah. Also, I do stream on Twitch more frequently now. At the time of this video, I have one VOD up from when I was playing Ocarina of Time. There's still a few kinks to work out, like the audio, so it's not a perfect stream by any means, but I had a lot of fun, and I have it linked. So if you want to join me, I plan on streaming more in like the evenings, quite a few days a week. Mainly Nintendo, but if there's something like, I've been streaming Phasmophobia with some buddies, and that has been a blast. So if there's any like specific game that you are like, oh, I think you would really like this, or this would be interesting to watch you play or have see your perspective on it, yeah, just let me know. And I really appreciate if you stuck around till the end of the video, and I hope you guys have a very good day. And like I said, I really appreciate you guys clicking on the video, and you know, I'm having a good time. I'm really enjoying this. So yeah, I'm going to get out of here, and yeah, I will catch you later.